Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Heartbeat, your daily Inter Miami podcast. And today we are talking about last night's 2-1 victory over the Chicago Fire and the 5 things we learned in that game. Inter Miami gets off to a great start. Robert Taylor with an incredible assist. Matias Rojas with the finish led to a very, very good first half. Inter Miami created a ton of opportunities, but just weren't able to convert, not able to get that second goal to put the game away. And ultimately, the game settled into a uncomfortably comfortable state. Chicago does rebound after some substitutes in the second half, ultimately gets the equalizer, but Jordi Alba quickly says, no, I got this, gets the game winner. Inter Miami cruises through to a 2-1 victory. Columbus loses last night. FC Cincinnati loses last night. All of a sudden, Inter Miami, not just at the top of the table, but with a nice, healthy lead. They are the overwhelming favorites for the Supporter Shield at this point, and ultimately that means home field advantage, a berth in next year's CONCACAF Champions Cup. This team is on a roll, and again, they're doing all of this without Lionel Messi. Last night was without Diego Gomez. They've been without Benjamin Kramaski. They're going to add a new center back in David Martinez over the next couple weeks, potentially another big piece coming. This is an incredibly fun team to watch right now because they are making things happen in ways that few Inter Miami fans would have thought possible if we rewound a couple years, because it's just been an incredible rise. And players that, even though they're the same players as last year, the mentality is different. These players feel like winners in a way that even last year it felt a little bit more touch and go. Let's get into the 5 things, though. Number 1, Avilés and Busquets complement each other very well. I went back and looked at it, and even though we've seen Busquets as a center back frequently over the last month or so, we saw him play there 4 straight games. Basically, that became his new position. We haven't seen him partner with Avilés a lot. Avilés had the back-to-back games suspended because of the red card and yellow card accumulation. He missed that FC Cincinnati game because of an injury, and so even though Busquets has played a lot of center back, he's mostly partnered with Sergej Christoph. Not the case last night. Avilés and Busquets played together, and it was the second time. We saw this in the second half against Charlotte FC. At halftime, we were really struggling. Ajimang was giving us a lot to deal with, and so at halftime, Tata made the sub to move Busquets into the back line and put Yannick Bright in the midfield. That worked out really well, but that was the only 45 minutes we've seen Avilés and Busquets together on the back line in a back two. Last night, we got it for the full 90 minutes, and it was really pretty. They just complement each other so well. Avilés with the athleticism, the ability to recover in transition, the pace, the size, the vertical ability, the blocks, the interceptions. He is exactly the type of partner you want to partner with Sergio Busquets if you're putting Busquets at center back. Busquets, on the other hand, incredibly good on the ball. A safety net that you can always push the ball back to if you're in trouble. And that doesn't just go for Avilés, but it also goes for Calendar. It goes from the midfield. It goes to the fullbacks. He's just always so calm and collected on the ball that it's a beautiful thing to have on the back line. And when Busquets is on the back line, he has the entire field in front of him. He can see everything, and that just opens up his playmaking ability just a little bit more. And for a team that doesn't have the best passers out of the back at center back, having Busquets back there and being a guy who can spray the ball around and just unlock defenses in a special way, it's really, really nice. I'm really happy that Tata Martino didn't scrap the Busquets at center back experiment after what we saw against Cincinnati. That game was really tough to watch, and Busquets got exposed for his lack of athleticism on a number of occasions. Don't get me wrong, but having Christoph as his partner only exacerbated that. And ultimately, both of those guys need a center back partner that can overcome some of their deficiencies. Neither of them got it on that day, but on this day, they do. Avilés is the athleticism that those two need next to them. I don't know how long we're going to have Busquets at center back, because Inter Miami is certainly going to add a defensive player to come in and be their starter at left center back in this window, but and potentially two. But until that goes through, and listen, we have some big games coming up. We have 2 games to qualify for the knockout stages of the Leagues Cup against 2 really good Mexican clubs. we have to be effective from minute one. And I think Busquets is going to be back there in our game on Saturday night against Puebla. So it's good to see us have some success with it. It's good to feel confident in what we have back there. And those two, I think, partner really well together. And I think that was worth noting. Number two, Yannick Bright is a monster. Listen, anyone who's listened to this podcast for the last couple months, anyone that's heard me on any other of the shows that I do, I love this player. I remember watching him in preseason, and even when he was getting 10-minute cameos in Asia, you could see there was a positioning intelligence to this player that was really positive. He ended up getting a start in the last preseason game against Newell's Old Boys. And it was in that game that I thought you could really see what this player was about. He played as a true number 6, and the discipline was there from the beginning. And that's really rare for a young player, especially a player that's working to get to a new level. But he's here now. He is absolutely established in the starting lineup. It felt like for the first couple months of the season, we didn't even sign him to his first team contract for quite some time. But even when we finally signed him, he looked like an emergency player, a guy Tata would throw on. Maybe in the last 20 minutes, he sort of earned a role late in games to come on and help kill games, and he was incredibly effective at that. But over the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, this player has emerged as a key figure in our midfield rotation. Ultimately, I think he's more important to this team's success than Federico Redondo, than Matías Rojas, than Benjamin Kramaski, because he provides that defensive solidity, and doesn't just provide defensive solidity. He's a monster back there. Last night, 4 clearances, 2 block shots, 3 interceptions, 4 tackles. He is a do-it-all defensive midfielder, and you have to love that. He's playing as well as Gregory ever did for this team. He's going to become more comfortable as a passer, and we saw last night, especially in that first half, he was excellent progressing the ball. This guy has everything you could want in a defensive midfielder, and I've said for months now that this guy feels like Darlington Nagbe 2.0, who is one of my favorite MLS midfielders of all time. Ultimately, is Yannick Bright a guy that is going to go to Europe? Maybe, I don't know. He is 22 and not 19, but I would be very happy if he was a Heron for the next 10 years, because he is so fun to watch. He makes you so much more comfortable as a fan, because you have that back there. And listen, he's now started only 7 games, but Inter Miami's record in those 7 games, I believe, is 6 wins, 1 loss. And listen, that 6-1 loss to Cincinnati, we kind of just have to chuck out of here, because there's nothing you can really, there's no takeaways from that game. But I think Inter Miami's won the other 6 games he started. And there was a record of not giving up goals in the run of play. That was really impressive. So this is a player that there's a lot to like about. On the season now, he's got 3.26 clearances per 90, 0.85 blocks, 2.5 interceptions, over 3 tackles per 90. These are monster numbers. I mean, he's getting more interceptions than Diego Gomez. I mean, he's as impactful in the midfield as Diego Gomez if you look at it by the stats. So take that for what it's worth, because Diego Gomez has the ability to destroy an opponent's midfield just by his athleticism and getting in the way. But the stats say that Yannick Bright is just as good. And, if that's not the compliment that he needs or deserves at this point, I don't know what is. Number 3, we have been excellent at absorbing pressure late in games since or without Lionel Messi this season, and especially over the last couple months. Going back all the way to that game at Vancouver, where we go up 2-0 and we are comfortably in control of the game. And then Avilés has a penalty in the 70th minute. It was kind of a dumb penalty, 72nd minute, something like that. And they convert. And then all of a sudden, Vancouver has some momentum and they feel like they can go out and win the game, or at least get a result. And Inter Miami, large part thanks to Yannick Bright, go out there and defend that lead for 20, 25, 30 minutes. And it was beautiful to watch. Fast forward to our game at Philadelphia. We had to absorb pressure down to 9 men. It was a 1-1 game, and Philadelphia is going for the win. They desperately needed a win at that point. And not only with 9 men did we absorb pressure and absorb an onslaught, but we were even able to hit on the counter and get the game-winning goal. Fast forward to the next game against Columbus at home. We had a 2-0 lead early, but Columbus was going to come after us, and We absorbed that pressure for the entire second half and win that game 2-1. Fast forward to the next game at Nashville. We had a 2-0 lead, and Nashville scores a goal, and all of a sudden they have some momentum. We had to absorb pressure for most of the second half. Fast forward to the next game at Charlotte. We had a 1-1 draw with Charlotte, but they were at home. They felt good. They felt confident. And they were going for it late. We had to absorb a lot of pressure. And not only did we absorb the pressure, not only did we keep the game as it was, but we ultimately got the Gressel to Kremaski game winner in the 85th, 86th minute. And so the track record's been very good lately, and that just continued last night. The Chicago Fire, down only 1-0, makes some substitutes in the 58th minute, I believe. Chris Mueller came on for them in the midfield. I thought he was really, really important for them. And that changed the game. All of a sudden, Inter Miami was out of energy, it seemed like, especially in the midfield. Redondo, Robert Taylor both looked kind of gassed at that point. And Inter Miami really struggled to hold possession. They had to sit back and absorb pressure for long stretches of that game. And yes, ultimately, their center back got a nice shot in on goal, but Inter Miami responded. And for the most part, especially from that 75th minute on, we were able to absorb pressure like it was nothing. And ultimately, Inter Miami gets the 2-1 victory, not giving up any tremendous chances to the Chicago Fire. And one of the key factors in all of this is that Yannick Bright has been on the field for almost all of these games, especially in the second half, especially late. In fact, I think he started 5 of the 6 games I just mentioned. And then the last one, he came on at halftime at Charlotte to help us close that game down. So this team has become tremendous at protecting leads late in games. They've been tremendous at absorbing pressure when the other team decides we have to go all out for this. And ultimately, now it's given Tata Martino the freedom to say, hey, should we go to try and win possession, to try and hold possession, to try and kill this game comfortably? Or should we try and put on a substitute that we feel can get a transition opportunity and hopefully put the game away? That's what we saw last night with Leo Afonso's substitute instead of potentially a Leo Campana. Afonso has that transition athleticism to try and create something going the other way. Ultimately, this is just awesome for Inter Miami because it gives Tata Martino the flexibility to do what he feels the game needs at that moment. And I will say it is just a fun fact that those 6 games I mentioned, we won all of them 2-1, which is ironic, but a fun fact nonetheless. Number 4, this team is really clicking, creating a ton of chances, and Luis Suarez is really helpful. Suarez didn't score a goal last game, and he only had one particularly dangerous opportunity to score, but he's creating a number of big chances, especially in transition, and especially when the game opens up. He's just a very dangerous player, and I think it goes underappreciated if you don't really watch closely. In fact, my initial reaction to that game was that Suarez didn't have a great game. He tried to do a lot of little touches, little dribbles, and they weren't really coming off for him. But because of his positioning, because of his vision, because of his ability to just understand where everyone is, and his ability to put the final ball where it needs to be, he just opens up the game in such a dangerous way. I think the Chicago Fire defense got a lot of confidence from what they did last night against Luis Suarez, and I think it's false confidence. I'm really excited to go back and rewatch this game because the advanced analytics thought Luis Suarez had a tremendous game. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But ultimately, beyond just Luis Suarez, there was patterns of play in that first half that were absolutely beautiful. It's a shame that none of them actually resulted in goals, and the only goal we had in that first half was some individual brilliance from Robert Taylor, because there was some absolutely incredible moments of passing back and forth, left to right. You could watch Chris Brady, the Chicago Fire goalkeeper, just shifting left to right, left to right, left to right, because the ball just kept going back and forth, completely disoriented the defense. And it created a couple of really good opportunities, one for Julian Gressel. Ultimately, Inter Miami wasn't able to score, but if they were, it would have been one of those highlight reels that people would have clipped up and said, this is what beautiful soccer is supposed to look like. So it's a shame that they weren't able to come off, but ultimately Inter Miami does get the 2-1 win. And when you see patterns of play like that, this understanding, this chemistry from teammates to know exactly where to be, Redondo was involved, Matias Rojas was involved, Gressel, Suarez, Robert Taylor, Jordi Alba. It gives you the confidence moving forward that sure, you might not have scored off any of these plays in this game, but you're going to create big opportunities moving forward. And then number 5, Inter Miami designed an incredibly sleek kit. That blue archive kit is beautiful. This is something they've been working on for a number of years. Whenever they were given permission to have that first, third alternate kit, this is what they wanted to do. And I think it looks beautiful. Ultimately, not related to the game, not related to the team, but I just wanted to give a kudos to Inter Miami. This kit is amazing. Sure, they should probably sell it in more choices than just Lionel Messi. I got a Ian Frey kit, but it's going to have to, I had to get that online. They didn't sell them in the team store. But it's just beautiful, man. And you see them in the crowd. People love it. And I'm certainly one of people because it is beautiful. I want them to wear it more often. It's a shame that they waited until the middle to end of July in order to debut it, because we're probably only going to see it 3 or 4 times. But it is so beautiful. It is so sleek. And I really love it. Guys, that was 5 things we learned against the Chicago Fire. 4.5, I suppose. I will be back tonight on the Drive Pink Dialogue with my co-host Soar, and we'll talk about the entire game in its entirety. We'll break it down. We'll give out awards. We'll do all that fun stuff. But for now, that's it for today. Guys, as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Hope you have a wonderful day. And again, your favorite team now is the runaway favorites for the Supporter Shield. Enjoy that. We have a nice long break in the Leagues Cup, and let's go get 3 trophies. It could be a great season. See you guys tomorrow.